welcome to Plastic Talks. I'm Amelia Hansen, Project Coordinator for Flip the Script on Plastics at Plastic Pollution Coalition. And today I'm speaking with Austin Elston and Emily Gallagher, the co-founders of Fishtown Films, a Philadelphia-based zero-waste production company. Emily, Austin, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Of course. So let's just start off simply. How did each of you get your start working in entertainment and production?
We started together all the way back in university when we would make theater together. Mm-hmm. And we worked in directing and writing and lighting design. And from there, we tumbled out of university and into the film industry. Mm-hmm. Austin had always been passionate about it, and I discovered it through him by taking one course at the local film center where I discovered what editing was, and it blew my mind. It was everything I wanted.
Yeah, it was just something that we kind of started doing because of the theater. And that experience in working in the theater was really informative to almost every avenue that we've chosen in our professional lives in general. Like, from being able to build and create theater from the ground up, we kind of, unbeknownst to ourselves, put out a good groundwork for how we were going to work for the rest of our lives, or at least to this point.
Yeah, that's really great. I also got started with theater, and that was my way into entertainment as well. I think that's a pretty natural course that a lot of us take. Theater can be a little constrictive sometimes, and entertainment just gets your message out there broader. It's great to know that's how you started. Yeah. And what inspired you guys to create a zero waste production company?
In 2015, we discovered the zero waste blogger Trash is for Tossers, Lauren Singer. And we just discovered that as a lifestyle. So we started off on our own in our personal lives, taking a jar every day to the coffee shop. It was like one small action that we would do. And if we forgot our tumbler or our jar, we just didn't have coffee that day. And from that small action, over the course of 3 months, we found our way to looking at a zero waste lifestyle in general for us. From doing that in our personal lives, it was an easy step to look at our industry and our film projects that we were doing, and looking at the incredible amount of waste that was on set and how we had already figured out how to tackle it personally. It was a natural step for us to go, no, we have to make a change on set as well. Yeah,
it was really, like, just as Emily said, a really kind of simple step moving forward from taking in what we were doing in our personal life and figuring out a way to make that part of our professional existence as well. Like, it was, I mean, it is an incredible change, and a really, it's a shift in kind of your mental paradigm on how you want to accomplish things. But it was easy because we decided, maybe easy is not the right word. It was tangible or something that we could do because it was something that we took in minor steps. We didn't ever think of it as something that we were going to revolutionize our own lives. We were like, okay, so what is something that we can do that's better?
Yeah,
better
one step at a time.
Better for our lives, better for how we're moving forward.
Yeah, that one step at a time, I think, is what a point, we need to drive home to a lot of people is you can't take it all on at once. You have to start with little actions like taking the jars to the coffee shop. Find one thing a month, and it builds and it grows from there. And then eventually you have a zero waste production company.
Yeah, exactly. It's as much about finding kind of the joy in that. Like, the idea of taking a tumbler to the coffee shop or a bag to the grocery store, it seems kind of obtuse in some ways to be like, well, they have those things there, or I can manage without it. But to some degree, we're in a capitalist society, so we like to accessorize, getting a tumbler we like, getting a tote that we're like, I really like the message on this, or this is a band I love and I'm going to carry it and I want to proudly show everybody that I really care about this band or whatever. And so being able to find some simple items that made me proud to carry them to the places that I was getting food stuff or coffee stuff from, made it really a tangible step as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love you bringing that up too, because that's something we're saying a lot in the whole Flip the Script on Plastics initiative, that the reusables you choose are building your character. It shows your personality. It's a great way to add those elements to it. People can start to recognize you from the bag that you take all the time, and they know, oh, there's Austin, because he always has, the bag for that podcast that I know he loves and almost no one listens to. Things like that are just really great ways to define someone, and that's something everyone should gleam onto.
Absolutely. It makes me think of a film, and of course I can't. I'm blanking on the title. Austin, you'll probably jump at it. It was like a holiday movie with Diane Keaton as the mom, and I know it has Rachel McAdams as one of her daughters.
I know what it is, but I can't remember the name.
And I always remember, it sticks in my head. Rachel McAdams jumps out of the car as she's coming back from university, and she has an I Heart NPR tote bag. And that always stuck with me. This was well before the Zero Waste movement. But I was like, oh, I know her character. She loves NPR and I love NPR. So we would be friends.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. It's a perfect example of well before we were doing the sustainable movement. It still shows exactly all these little bits of character, all these bits of costume are part of reusables and part of this movement.
Yeah, part of the fabric of both the film and your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, going back to the foundations of your production company, can you tell people how you specifically define the terms of zero waste and plastic free in your work?
Yeah, we define it by every department. So for us, it's literally about the amount of trash you create on set. It's about making sure you're taking extremely mindful steps in every single department to cut back on both your waste and anything that is disposable. So single use is a big one. Single use plastic is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it really starts from the end. Like the end of the film. Like not an actual like end, but when you start your project and you think, okay, so how do I want this project to turn out? I start by thinking about how it's going to turn out at the very end, what I want the final product to be. And I start working back and touching on all those departments, like thinking of costumes, thinking of the catering, thinking of sets, thinking of every single thing that could come up along the way, and trying to address them the best I can or we can as we work through the process of building out the film.
Yeah.
So for us, what we did was we looked at it in each department and we asked ourselves, where can we be super mindful in this department to use reusables, to use things that already existed? Where can the characters exist in a space that already exists? Can we avoid, set construction is one of the biggest forms of waste in Hollywood. And so we chose to work with existing businesses for our set pieces. We made sure that the costumes were thrifted. We made sure the food was with reusables on set, as well as in the film itself. So we also were really mindful about rechargeable batteries and using rented gear or owned gear for filming, actually, and lighting the set. And literally every single department, we had to sit down, figure out what was the standard that we had been doing previously and how could we augment it slightly or dramatically to be more mindful.
Yeah. Now, you're talking about the film, and we haven't mentioned it in this conversation. So do you want to tell folks a little bit about your new film that's coming out citywide?
Yeah, we'd love to. Our feature film is called Citywide. It's coming out December 5th, and it is about a wild night in Philadelphia. A woman comes down from New York. She falls in love with two different women. There's a girl gang. There's a serial killer on the loose. And it's just a wild, fun hangout film.
Yeah.
But we did it zero waste.
Yeah.
So it really has everything. You've got, it's queer, it's a little scary, it's a party, and it's considering the environment. That's great.
Yeah, it's kind of just Yeah, it's just a typical night out in Philadelphia in a lot of ways.
I love that. I love that.
And it's our first feature, but we've been making short films and music videos zero waste since 2015. And so this is kind of a culmination of all the experiences to this point, obviously, that we have had making films under these kind of guidelines.
Yeah. And can you talk about some of the challenges that you face when it comes to making these productions zero waste?
Yes, I think the biggest challenge is that most people don't live a low waste lifestyle.
No.
So you're asking a crew and a cast to come in and do something that's wildly different from how they live every day. So the biggest challenge is the buy-in. You have to have every department, you have to have every actor, every crew member buy into this idea, which honestly is not hard to do.
No, not at all.
Just sitting down and having a conversation with each person, they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Sure. But then the next step is you have to provide everything for them.
Yeah.
Because you can't ask them also to think of that when they're also trying to think of how are they lighting the scene, what is the action of their character. You know, you can't ask them to think about something that's not in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So you have to provide that for them.
You have to make it easy for them, or as easy as you can for them, because like in general, like this sort of lifestyle choice or this sort of augmentation to your reality is just that. Most people don't think about a lot of the shit that is problematic or could be problematic for our planet, and so it's not like the biggest kind of hurdle is to make sure that nobody feels like they're really doing anything wrong with how they're living their life as you continue to try to make progress in a positive way, because it's not about shame. We don't get anywhere if we just tell people you're doing it wrong, like especially in a film set. I mean, and this works in any professional environment. If you just continue to tell somebody that they're doing it wrong, they're going to create some sort of psychosis about like never being able to be doing it right. So trying to make a situation available for somebody to feel successful while also changing some of the core elements of how they live, it's a difficult task, but it's not undoable.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And it's the shame-free is so important, because I think that's, again, the struggle that a lot of people have with this is you tell them the issues with plastic and with a lot of these other disposable items, and right away they see it all in their kitchen, and it can be this shame spiral of like, there's so much around me, there's so much in this production, there's nothing I can do about it. But the encouragement is what we're here to give everyone.
Absolutely. And that is really the core tenet as to why we transitioned our film studio to be zero waste, was we were getting really tired of the message that was sent out as if it was a consumer problem. And it's not fair. It's not the individual's fault that we are in this situation. It is a corporation's fault. It's an industry fault. And it's up to the industries to make seismic change and systemic change. And so we looked at our own studio and said, well, we can do that in our projects. We can make this change. And from that, we can educate other people and allow them to see that there's another way to do it. So I think that's essential. It's essential for the industries to take ownership and to make real, I mean, it's this huge change. If the average movie set makes 500 tons of garbage and has countless amounts of disposable plastic, well, how is that compared to the average person that just makes like 4 pounds of trash? You know, I mean...
Yeah, it's monumental. In one day on a movie set, you could make enough trash for a person's lifetime, depending on the person.
Exactly.
And nobody thinks about that. Nobody, you know, the average person isn't sitting around thinking, oh, I wonder how many bottles of water my favorite movie used. But the answer is so many. They use so many bottles. Because you also, when it's a plastic bottle, there's no ownership over it either. That's the problem with these single-use items, is if you put it down somewhere, then you'll never remember if it's yours, where you put it. But if you put a cool branded, like a bottle that says Citywide on it, and only 100 of those were made for the film, then it's like, I want to keep that bottle. I'm going to remember where I put it. I'm going to pick it back up, and I'm going to keep refilling it.
Absolutely. In fact, that is exactly what a bunch of the actors talked to us about, was how they, when they started working with us, they'd look around on big Hollywood sets and television sets and look around and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many plastic water bottles there are everywhere. And you take a sip and you put it down and you forget about it. And it's just so fast. It happens so quickly. It disappears so fast. And it had an impact on them, and they were so excited to be on a sustainable set and not have to worry that they were causing more grief for the planet because it was being handled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
which is so fun.
So can you talk some more about some of the examples of reusable or refillable containers that you implemented on set and in production?
Yeah. A lot of what we did was we, like, for our reusable containers on set, like we thrifted a lot of them. Like we went to our local thrift store, Circle Thrift here in Fishtown, and purchased some mugs, some glassware, some plateware, so that we could just use things, average, normal, everyday things that we all use in our life every day to cook and eat off of and drink out of. And so we purchased them from a secondhand store because it was easy enough. Like, and there's tons of these, tons of locations all over, of course, everywhere that you can purchase these from. And so we just ended up, washing them. I mean, I there's not a big payoff to the story there in the regards of like one of the things that we found was that making our film zero waste was a lot more cost efficient, but it took a little bit more time. So like spending time doing dishes or doing laundry with, instead of having like paper towels that you would throw out, having napkins to use for cleaning your hands or whatnot. Like it was really like there was time that was used in that to make them clean and to use them again that you wouldn't use, or that you haven't used in the past.
Yeah, and we also did a lot of elements of having big containers of things. So, for example, we would go to the local coffee shop every day before set, and we had these huge jugs, these thermoses, and we would take them in early in the day, and they would, because we, of course, had to shoot all night in December, because that's a good time to shoot outdoors.
Yeah.
So we would go in and we get all these tumblers filled, like these huge thermoses filled with coffee and tea and hot water and everything else you could dream of. And we'd take them to set, and then the actors would grab their mugs and they would fill them up. And it was just really simple, because you could be doing coffee runs all night long, or you could prep ahead of time and have it all there on set all night long, keeping it piping hot. They're happy because it's delicious local coffee. And I know, it's these little things, these little actions. Now, granted, we're a smaller set than a huge Hollywood set, so we can control some of that, but it's easily scale upable. You could easily scale up and have a truck that's there, a coffee truck that's there, and everybody just has their on-set mugs that, exactly as you said, brand it with the production company or brand it with the film, and you could even have it specified and brand it with their names if you wanted to.
Yeah.
There's so many ways you can tackle plastic waste on set, and it's fun.
And the other thing that we found that was really easy, or surprisingly easy, was when we were talking to the vendors about this, like the Reanimator, the coffee shop that we went to, or Miss Rachel's, the caterer that we went to. We talked to them about all the things that we were doing zero waste, and they bought in. And so it was easy to have them work with the limitations that we were asking them to work under, because they were like, oh, okay, so that makes sense. Like, I'll just do it this way. You don't need plastic utensils because you have the utensils. I just won't send them. Why would I? Like, I don't need to make that waste into the world. So there were elements like that are like size upable, as Emily said, that you can then move into a bigger production, because the companies or the catering firms or whatnot, they'll agree because they want the work. They'll figure out a way to make it work for them.
Yeah, I love that. The point of, you telling these people what you're doing and they all buy into it, then again, you still look at these bigger production companies. If two of them are going to caterers saying, we don't need the plastic utensils, we don't need the plastic plates, it builds and they get used to phasing those things out. And it's really a trickle down effect to it all.
Absolutely.
Is you're educating everyone and you're also just getting them used to these new practices.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is like, it's about a kind of environmental representation that you need to have on set of like, okay, so we're doing it this way because the environment needs to be repped for here.
Yeah.
And it'll build business.
Yeah.
It'll build so
Yes.
much new business.
Yes, the
Not to mention
business
the-
and the money is definitely a big thing, that we're trying to drive home too. Because it's true, if you're using reusable props and sets, you save so much money in the long run. Or even just thinking about the coffee runs, if you have a PA on a bigger set who's doing 5 coffee runs a day, that's fuel costs, that's hours. Plus, all the money for an individual cup of coffee costs so much more than a large jug of coffee. And you're ultimately saving so much more money. And that's what these studios need to get is like, hey, if you have 500 reusable cups, you can use those on 500 different movies. And you only have to pay for them once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the cost savings was astronomical. We easily saved over $10,000 making this zero waste.
Wow.
It is a huge savings to do it low waste and to do it plastic free.
And especially for a film of our budgeting, like that's a sizable chunk of change that we didn't have to put into something that was disposable and just went away and was never going to be seen again. Well, not by us, just by the planet.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah, it's just the business that will build up around doing things sustainably and plastic free and zero waste is going to be incredible. The reusable props, the reusable costumes, the warehouses of things that we can all use over and over and over again.
yeah, that can have second and third lives.
Yes, it's amazing. It's just, it'll blow your mind when you really break it down.
Yeah, and this kind of like it ties in or dovetails with the Flip the Script initiative. Like when you're making, like when we were writing the script, like the first draft of the script wasn't an incredibly like zero waste, plastic free script. It wasn't like there was plastic and waste everywhere. It wasn't a wasteland of that either.
Yeah.
It's just that it's that once you, like for me, when I'm writing something, it's like I write what's in my head and then I take a step away, and when I come back to it, I think about what is the script saying about the world that I have made. And so I can then look at those elements of like plastic or waste that could exist in the fringes of the script or even explicitly in the script depending on the narrative, and find a better way to tell that, or a more pointed way. Like, why does this person have plastic? Why? Like, do they have to? Does it like, what does it represent about them? What do I want an audience to walk away from when they see this character with it? Do I want them to think something positive about them? Do I want them to think something negative? Do they grow because at first they were using plastic and now they're not? Like, what is the arc? What is the story? What is happening here? Why is it important? Because everything that's on screen, every little thing that's on screen is a choice. And that choice, for better or worse, is a political choice about where you stand and what you stand for in the world. And those things add up, because as Emily often says to me, like, Hollywood is the greatest influencer of the last century.
Yeah.
And the fact that it has made so many good things is only tempered by the amount of negativity it kind of brings in with elements like this, where you're like, okay, well, you just are subscribing to a norm that doesn't need to be. So let's get rid of that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love that. And you reminded me of something I've thought of a lot with this initiative is something that Apple does is they don't allow villains to use Apple products in movies. It's just like an unstated rule that got a little more publicized. And I feel like that's something you can do with environmental causes and plastic. If your character needs to use plastic, give it to a villain. Have it. That's a way to set up that these things are bad. Give them a negative connotation so that someone knows, oh, that character just threw a cup out of their car. If I see that car again, I know that's a bad person. You know, it's, again, it just all comes back as like this, it improves your storytelling so much if you're looking at every little element and thinking about how it affects the character and how it affects the audience and what you're saying by putting just a small plastic spoon on the screen can say so much.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you'll like our movie.
Yes, I'm very excited.
But you're absolutely correct. And that's like a wonderful challenge for writers right now with Flip the Script to say, look at the scripts you have right now. If you tackle it with a rewrite, how can you be mindful in this rewrite to tackle that question? Who are the villains?
Yeah.
Who are the people that you're saying are the positive heroes of this? How can you change what's in their hands, what's in their fridges, what's happening in their everyday lives to reflect the Flip the Script on plastics? I think it's such a fun and amazing challenge you guys have put out there. I'm so excited.
We're so excited about it too, and that's my education is in script writing as well, so always thinking about that. Just the little things that you do in your everyday life and in your scripts say so much about your character. And think about, if I've started doing recycling in my life and it makes me feel better, and not recycling. That's a little tricky. I meant composting. You start doing composting in your life, it makes you feel better. So why can't you put that into a character? Like, look, this character's growing. You know they're growing because they've started putting their banana peels in a jar to watch it decompose on their fridge, and that's a fun thing.
Absolutely.
And it becomes a character trait. And these things matter, as you're saying. Like, it's such a wonderful, like, as you're both saying, it's such a wonderful way to define people, and an interesting way, because like there isn't a lot that has been done that way so far in cinema. Like it's not a trope yet. It's not a stereotype yet. It's just an idea, and we're getting to kind of form how that plays out moving forward, instead of having like I think back into the 90s and the early aughts, and almost every environmental character's like generally a crazy person.
Yes.
Like they're defined as this tree hugger type of motif.
Eccentric.
Exactly.
Or some annoying bro who just doesn't wear shoes.
Yes.
Right. And it's so played at this point, that idea. Like somehow we leaned into the idea that our planet was not the thing to be rallied behind, but people who opposed people who are rallying behind our planet,
right?
Which is so obtuse. It's so backwards thinking.
I like you bringing that up because especially the late 90s, early 2000s, I think we were inundated with all of our content just being full of stereotypes, and the stereotype that they attach to the environment is like it's this annoying crunchy granola, typically a white person for some reason, and it's like that doesn't reflect our reality. And the population that cares about the environment is so much wider than this little stereotype. So let's build out some positive stereotypes, because the 2000s set us back in a lot of ways in media. A lot of that's really difficult to look at today. So how can we take building, because people are still going to use stereotypes in their scripts, but we have to build these positive ones that make people feel good and feel okay to have that stereotype applied to them. Like, I'm happy to be associated with that character because they're doing something good and they're portrayed in a positive light, and not as a white lady running around with dreads, living in a tent.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not
So problematic.
that's not the image we need to have as this solo person that's representing the environment.
No.
And that's why we were really mindful in making Citywide and our previous works as well, that we had a very diverse cast, that we had a cast that was queer, and queer roles were played by queer people. And this was really important to us, to not only to be making the first zero waste movie, and that was exciting, where the content was an entertaining story as opposed to about environmentalism, because it's not talked about at all in the film. But it also just showcased that, like, it doesn't have to be just white savior shit. Sorry. That we can be out there and showing the amazing diversity of our world and all the different people that want to save it. So absolutely smashing that stereotype of the white lady with the dreadlocks and no shoes.
Yeah.
We're done. This is 2022 and we are ready for change.
And it's important, I think, to remember those films of the 90s and early aughts, the ones that put us back, and not just view them totally as cringe, because we can, and we can just dismiss them, but we can also look at them and go, okay, how do we do better? Like, they exist. They're not to be canceled or to be thrown out and shunned, but to be referenced as, okay, so this film did this, and these are the reasons that it's unsuccessful now. We've got to a place where we understand that this didn't work or wasn't the way that we wanted it to be represented or to be presented, period. And now we can do something better. It's like the good thing about film is it lasts so long. We get to change our perspective as we move through our own lives. We can look at something like, I know Emily was watching You've Got Mail today, and there are elements of that film that are incredibly cringe, and there are parts of it that you're like, okay, so how would we do this better? How could we make the narratives that are here in place in this film work a little bit better now, because we have a different perspective of what the world is.
Yeah.
Oh, so many things. I will say that at the very beginning of the film, Tom Hanks walks out of his kitchen drinking out of a plastic water bottle, and I nearly threw something. Like, you are in your kitchen.
Why?
Yeah.
How'd they get to you there?
I love that, though, the looking back at it, because film history is such an important thing to look at with these initiatives and with everything, because that is what reflects our culture. And that's why we're doing the Flip the Script initiative, so that when people are looking back on these films that we're making today, they see that we were caring and we're putting in the right information, so that when a kid goes back and finds, Citywide on whatever Netflix is in 25 years, they're noticing that, oh, yeah, I don't see any plastic in this. They were actually doing that stuff 25 years ago. It was in the movies, and we're seeing progress, because that's the easiest way for people to glean onto history. The most accessible form of history is through popular culture. Not everyone's going to go back and read, Howard Zinn's History of the United States. They're going to find some presidential movie that's half fake to watch, but we got to do our best to make the important things accurate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, art imitates life. Life imitates art. So let's show the best version of it that we can.
Yeah, and it's all about progress, not perfection. Because as best as Em and I did for our film, I'm sure that in 15 years someone's going to be like, oh, well, you could have done this better, or you could have done this. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be. But it's I'm doing the best that I can with the thing that I have in front of me. And the next film that we make will be better than the one that we just did. Not maybe for content, but because we know more. And we've just experienced more. And we've learned how to be more productive or quicker or more aware or cognizant, all of those things as we move forward.
Yeah. And as you said, nobody can be perfect, especially when it comes to environmental issues. It is impossible to be perfect, because we're in a capitalist society, and Coke is going to keep making plastic bottles.
Yep.
And sometimes you might just be given one of those and you can't do anything about it. So you can't, if we try and be perfect, we're going to fail all the time. But if we accept our imperfections and do our best, we're going to make progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if we try to be perfect, we're never going to move. We're just going to keep being shut down by it all.
And we're in a really interesting moment right now, because we all had to do a huge shift to deal with COVID, right? We all, the globe went on a massive shift. We all adapted. We dealt with the pandemic. And so as we're coming out of it, I think this is the most beautiful moment to be tackling Flip the Script on plastics and to be tackling waste in Hollywood, because we were able to adapt. So now we can adapt again. Yeah. We can move so quickly to make change. So we can do it again, and we can do an amazing job if we want.
Yeah, we proved to ourselves that we could do that, with everybody starting to work from home, everybody starting to learn new patterns on how they were going to do their work. If we learn that as quickly as we did, with the pressure that was COVID crushing us to some degrees, we could do that with Flip the Script. We can do that with our entertainment industry. We can do that in our personal lives.
Yeah, we can make systemic change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the entertainment industry switched really quickly during that, and suddenly they were making TV shows and movies over Zoom.
Yep.
So if
Exactly.
Hollywood could do that, then they can do this just as easily. They weren't making as much waste by doing, a Zoom movie because
Right?
they
Right.
weren't buying water bottles for anyone. So it's very easy to
It's
do.
so true.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh, yeah. I just think it's
talking
exciting.
about talking about Hollywood in general, I just want to know who in Hollywood has inspired both of you to keep working towards environmental justice and representation in the industry.
That's a really fascinating question. I honestly, for me, well, there's one answer that's really obvious to me, and it's like Ed Begley Jr. and his work
Yeah.
throughout his entire life.
Absolutely.
Like he's been an incredible beacon of what you can do in your own life, as well as what you can inspire others to do in theirs. But the real thing that inspires me about Hollywood and about continuing to do this is the next generation of filmmakers and kids out there who are learning this, because like they still are building their craft, and they have all the tools in their belt still available to them, because people haven't told them that they can't do it this way or that they can't do it that way. And all of these new ways of getting your art and entertainment out to people is so fascinating and life affirming to me, because like it's an uncharted territory. The amount of different ways between TikTok, between Reels, Vimeo, YouTube, every single person who is creating vlogs for their hiking trail adventures, like everybody who's learning their new ways to tell their stories. Like that's so inspiring to me. And the fact that we are going to be able to hopefully continue to do that for a long time, that's what inspires me.
I love that. Yeah, and definitely Ed. I mean, he's a founding notable member of PPC. We love him. And before I even knew about Plastic Pollution Coalition, I always, Ed is the jokes in The Simpsons of his car that runs on his own sense of self-righteousness, or even the show Happy Endings. He bikes up on his recumbent bike and yells at them for making a meat sandwich named after him, because of course Ed Begley Jr. wouldn't want a meat sandwich named after him. And the fact that a show can just throw in such a tiny joke about someone because he's synonymous with environmentalism in Hollywood is so cool. But I also love that point about the next generation, because I even think when I was in film school 10 years ago, they started changing quickly, and the programs were adapting to be focused more on social media and on what you can do on your computers and online, and how that affects the film industry. And it's changing at such a fast rate that the younger creators, they're used to that fast pace of changing, and they're able to adapt a lot more quickly than the older folks in Hollywood, because for so long it was, this is the way you do it and that's just it. And then suddenly the internet came around and everything just kind of spiraled. And I love that the young people just know how to roll with the punches and really change it up.
Absolutely. And therefore it's up to us who are in it and who have experience with the craft to suss out the different ways that they can best tackle this, so they can come into the industry and already have the layout planned out for them. So they can go, oh, great. So I just have to use sustainable clothing brands, or I'm going to choose to use salvaged clothes for my costumes, or there's a warehouse that now exists with all the props that you could possibly need. Thanks for having it set up. Like, it's our job to get it set up so that they have an opportunity to create new things too.
Yeah, and I would also add that it's our responsibility to not put parameters that are like that box in those things and say this is the only way to do it. That as we hopefully help create a new frontier for people to explore within, that we keep our options open to hearing new ideas, because again, we're not going to have the full right ones formed in our heads first time. Like, nobody does. No genius has ever come up with one idea that has been perfectly formed the first time they've thought of it. They think about it for a while. They argue with themselves. They drive their partners, spouses, anybody that's around them, friends, nuts as they try to suss out all the details. And then they present their genius to the world. And like the genius here is keeping us humans alive on this planet. And that's really the point of it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so great. So on that note, do you have any specific advice that you would give to these young people that are getting started in entertainment and want to start off on this zero waste or environmentally conscious foot?
I do. I think one of the first things I would say that surprised me as we made this transition was that you're going to spend your time doing something. So don't look at it like it's going to take too much time to be sustainable. Source out existing props or find salvaged clothing or you washing all the dishes at the end of the set. You're going to spend your time going to buy the plastic disposable crap or going to get the fast fashion for your character. So use your time in a way that's sustainable and moves forward for the planet and is good for the environment in general. Don't worry that it's taking too much time, that if you just did what was easy, that would be faster. It isn't. And I know that sounds kind of weird the way I'm saying it, but it was a really big breakthrough for me when we did a music video for us a couple years ago before we were Zero Waste. And it was a music video called Human Cannibal. And we had like 23 people on set. It was 3 days for rehearsal and execution. It was this huge project for us. And I was constantly having to go to the grocery store to get more of whatever, right? And I was losing my mind because I had all these other things to do. We were trying to get this one shot done. We were trying to get the sets built. We were trying to do all these things. And I just had to keep going back. We were out of plastic plates. We were out of plastic utensils. We were out of. And when we switched to zero waste, I realized, yes, I was doing dishes. Yes, I was running laundry for linens and whatnot. The time was just shifted to something else. But the cost savings was astronomical.
Yeah.
So especially when you're a filmmaker, when you're new at your craft and you don't have a big budget and you don't have a lot of time, you're going to spend the time either way. So save the money and put it into better actors. Save the money and put it into better locations, better cameras. You know, you're gonna spend that money and you're gonna spend that time. How do you want to use it? And I say sustainably because it's awesome. And fun.
Yeah. I think that's perfect, Em.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, what advice would you give to maybe these larger production companies that are looking to start removing the single-use plastics and waste from their productions?
Talk to your departments.
Yeah.
Trust your departments. Sit down with your department heads and say, where do you see the waste? Where do you see change happening? Listen to them and actually engage with them about their ideas. Don't dismiss them. Talk to everyone. Talk down all the way down to your PAs. Get a sense of everybody and what they're seeing.
Even talk to your janitor staff. Like talk to do a whole sweep of your production studio and ask everybody down, where are you seeing the waste? It's not to try to find somebody and be like, you're creating too much waste, you need to shape up. It's like not that. It is not a blame situation. It's not trying to make somebody feel bad. It is an assessment. It's like math. Numbers don't care. They have no emotions whatsoever. They just are numbers. So you look at it as clearly as you can without putting an emotional stigma to any of this information and go, I just need to know what this is and where this is. How do we address it then? And again, this is not an emotional thing. We're going to address it by doing these things and being open to the fact that this is going to create like it's going to muddy waters. It's going to stir up dirt that's been settled for years and years. It's just going to create a different environment.
I would also say for the bigger companies to consider having a green department. And this is something we've been talking about with a couple different studios up in New York. we were discussing how to manage it. And this was the idea we crafted, was having an actual department. It doesn't have to be that many people, but a department of people that are there to be guides on how to make things more sustainable, remove the plastic, the single-use plastic from the stream of the world building that you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a really, it's quite actually a pretty direct way to do it, because if you just have a few people that are working with every department head, that are working to manage it and bring ideas to the table and manage the execution of things, it's not that it's really not that hard. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
I mean,
that saves you so much money.
I mean, and let's be clear, it is hard because like we have our tendencies, but it doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to make it harder than just kind of changing our actions in general.
Once you put the action into play, people will follow suit.
Yeah,
they will, and they do, and it's pretty easy. And they're like, okay, sure. Oh, you want me to use this cup instead? No problem.
Yeah. Most people don't want to think that hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think about what you said, Austin, about going to every single department and everyone on set. If you're doing that, you're also giving everyone more of a sense of ownership over the production. If you're going to everyone on the art department and saying, how can we make this set greener? What things can we do for you to improve this? Then they're going to feel more proud of their work. They're going to feel more listened to, and they're going to put more heart into it. So you're saving money, but you're also getting people to care more about the final product. And that's what we all want in this. You want everyone who works on your production to have a sense of pride and ownership over what you're doing, including the janitors. But also, you're saving money if you're talking to the janitors and being like, oh, you have to stay for 2 extra hours because we left water bottles everywhere? Well, now you can get those 2 hours back because we have reusable bottles and there's less trash on set for you to clean up. There's also less dumpsters we have to rent and pay for, less hauling we have to pay for. It all saves so much money.
It does. And you bringing up the point of having more ownership is a really great point. That was something that the actors came back to us over and over again to tell us that they felt so cared for on set. They were like, this was the most caring environment we've been in. We felt seen, we felt heard, we felt respected and honored to pull out, to do our craft, to perform for you. There was a beautiful kind of community that was built around this communication of sustainability, because we did have to be mindful. We had to sit down with each person. We had to explain what it was, why we were doing it, what the expectations were, as well as doing the film. And so that was a surprising payoff. And it was a great environment. It was a really magical set. It felt like film camp. We had so much fun. There was so much giggling. There were so many dance parties. And it was just because people felt seen and appreciated.
And they felt, as you want to underline a point that Em just said, like they felt like they could communicate all these things to us. And that's kind of key to this whole systemic change. Being able to feel that you can communicate your ideas out. And so like when I say like you should go to all your department heads and you go to everybody and chat with them about all of this, what you shouldn't do is use that time in the allotted pre-production, post-production, production stages of the film. You should add pre-production time. Maybe even if it's just a day or two where you talk to everybody about it beforehand so that you don't create more stress, because our environment is such a stress-laden, high-risk environment. Everybody on set, everybody in the production team, everybody in the post-production team is under an amount of stress because of what is at stake of making the film, making the television show, making the art. And so making sure that you don't add to that and that you open up a conversation and a line of communication before you get into the process of this whole chaotic, beautiful thing that we do is really, really important. And to reiterate what Em said, part of the reason that we were able to do it this way for our film, for our feature, was because we started from auditions, from the the trails, the inklings of a trail for this film, talking to every single person about how we were going to achieve this, so that they knew what they were expected to do or what was going to be provided for them, so that there wasn't a confusion or a concern relating to the production of the film for anybody around it.
Yeah, it's all about preparation, because if you come to your props department the day of shooting and say, hey, we need to stop using so much plastic, fix it in 2 hours, they're just going to get mad, and they're not going to want to do it, and everybody's going to be angry. But if you if you do that planning ahead of time and say, this is the goal of our production, this is what we're trying to do in addition to making a great piece of art, then everybody's going in with the mission in mind, keeping it in mind every step of the way. And that's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just imagine the prop department falling over with the amount of side eye they're giving you.
Yeah.
You have 2 hours. Go.
Yeah. You're like,
Exactly.
sorry, like the world has turned sideways. I've fallen over. I couldn't contain myself anymore.
Yeah. You don't want to make your props or your set people mad, because they could really ruin things.
Yeah. That's not a good idea.
Don't do that.
No, nor your post-production staff.
No.
No.
Your sound mixers, your
costumer,
your ADR team. Like, no, like you're
There's so many people you could piss off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It becomes very thorny if you can't communicate properly with them what you're looking for from an early stage.
Oh my goodness. But it is communication. Yeah. It is communication. It's just
Yes.
conversation, education, and kindness.
Yeah. And I always tell everybody on my set and everybody that I'm working with that the conversation is a doorway. I don't get to shut the door when I open the conversation. The door is now open for conversation. Whatever comes up from the ideas that I'm presenting out, like, ask, be communicative, because it's important for people to realize that there is a flow of information that comes from two sides. Nobody is absolutely right.
And what that does is opens up the door for communication about everything.
Yeah.
So it isn't just about sustainability. It isn't just about plastic waste. It becomes, your PA comes over to you and very quietly asks the director, hey, I know you have the shot, but what would be really cool is maybe if you did a shot from this angle. And suddenly you're looking at your PA and you're like, yes, I have a moment to sit here and chat with you. We've built a relationship. And you know what? That shot is a great idea. And we hadn't thought about it. But we have a little extra time. So why don't we set it up and we get that shot?
Yeah.
And then that shot is in the future film.
Yeah.
You don't know where some brilliant ideas could come from and who could be potentially your future assistant or a personal person that just gets you, the person that should be on your set always. If you shut down conversation early.
It's going to make everybody feel more comfortable in general. You think of other movements like the Me Too movement, things where people haven't said things for years about problems on sets because there isn't that open line of communication. There isn't that established, healthy relationship with everyone on set. So even if this starts from an area of environmentalism and zero waste, it opens up all those doors to people having stronger relationships, being more confident, and feeling safe in their workplace. If their health, because you're showing that we care about not just the health of the world, but the health of the people on set. By removing the plastic bottles, they're not ingesting those toxins from it sitting in the sun all day. So it shows you care about their health, so you're going to care if something goes wrong on set and they can actually speak up.
That you take that extra step to make sure they have accessibility to clean water. And plastic particles in water makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. The idea, once I started thinking about all the sets, if they're on location, in the Nevada desert and there's a hot van filled with plastic bottles of water, it wasn't great water to begin with. It was just tap water, but now it's tap water full of toxins because they're just leaching in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so angering.
It's angering and depressing.
It is. It's just, it doesn't have to be.
No.
It doesn't, there's no, especially on major Hollywood sets, you have all the money and resources. It doesn't have to be like this.
Yeah.
Just make that change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we'll fight you.
You and I, we'll fight everybody.
Fisticuffs. Let's do this.
Are you getting into another fight?
We're doing it.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to share with us on this topic about your film, about your production company before we wrap this up?
I feel like I would say it's just start one step at a time. If you're interested in making a transition to making your set more sustainable, if you're interested in learning how to do more of it, it's just one step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself with doing a whole big feature film that way. But you absolutely can. But we started with first a music video, made 4 ounces of trash. And then we moved on to some short films and made 8 ounces on those sets. And it was good to try to tackle something that was only 3 days of shooting versus a month and a half, and 3 people on set versus 20. How do you work to scale it up? Start small and make one step at a time, but do realize that as you make those changes and as you make those adjustments, you're actually going to build like such a beautiful world on your set.
Yeah.
As long as you're kind, which is also really important, to be kind.
Yeah. And to just piggyback on that, kind and communicate, because again, as I said earlier, film sets are incredibly stressful and chaotic places. And if you can learn early on how to communicate on each film set with the people that you're going to be collaborating with, from your DP to your actors to your editors, your sound mixers, to everyone, especially if you're in a position of power like Em and I are with our company. Like, if you talk to everybody and you listen to everybody as you work through the process, you'll find a lot more common ground and a lot less fear, because you're able to communicate about the things that are tough.
Yeah.
And that will lead to, as you said earlier, bigger conversations like the Me Too movement, sexism and abuse within our industry. We have to be taking care of each other. Something we were discussing earlier with our sound engineer was the fact that what blows our mind is the music industry is so supportive of each other. They show up at each other's shows. We see bands play in other people's bands. Like, musicians are playing in each other's bands. They're coming to each other's shows. We as a film industry have to make that change too. We have to support each other and see it as a community. Watch each other's films. Go to each other's openings. Support it. Be involved in each other's films. Because as we make this more sustainable, I think we're going to find we're also going to build a bigger community of film and really have each other's backs.
Yeah.
That's what we're really excited about, is the community of film.
Because we all know how big and tough this process is. And even if the film doesn't work for you, it might work for somebody else. And so instead of buying into the idea and the easy idea of negativity and being like, well, this film sucked because of this and this and this, it's like, no, they got it made. And we all know how tough it is to sit down every day with all of our own self-doubt and go, I'm going to put another step forward. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to communicate with this person about the thing that I want them to do. And they might have different opinions. And then am I going to allow my anxiety to get in the way? No, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to talk with them. I'm going to allow them to interact with me. We all know how tough it is to make everything. So instead of viewing this all in a binary, there's only so many slices in this pie available to everybody sort of way, there isn't. That's a fiction. It's just like it's the powers that be telling us that we can't have what we want because they have it and they don't want us to have it. We can have it. We can make it. We can do it sustainably. We can do it our own way. We can do it responsibly. We can do it with care.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, well, thank you, Austin and Emily, so much for having this conversation with me.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah,
this
is a
was
blast.
so fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have plenty more to come. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Plastic Talks. If you enjoyed this interview, please like and subscribe. This program was made possible by the generous donations from our supporters worldwide. If you would like to hear more interviews with experts and activists and would like to support our work, please visit plasticpollutioncoalition.org.